Question number 23 is an inference or implication. The central assumption. What exactly is the central assumption in setting up the research? It's an assumption that later has to get changed. And my prediction was that the baby ground birds would measurably demonstrate the beginnings of flight from the ground up. And that agrees with A. I couldn't immediately eliminate it, although I tried. The acquisition of flight in young birds sheds light on the acquisition of flight in their evolutionary ancestors. He's studying young birds to see if he could actually find behavior in young birds that would also be behavior in evolutionary ancestors. The tendency of certain young birds to jump erratically is somewhat recent evolved behavior? No, he thinks the exact opposite. He thinks that it's actually a holdover from ancient times and evolutionary ancestors. So it's actually the opposite of recent. And C, I eliminated C because young birds in controlled research setting are just as likely as birds in the wild. The assumption, this is not going to work if you do it in a lab, if lab birds and field birds behave differently. You've got to assume that you're not really changing anything by bringing the birds from the field into the lab. They're not less likely, they've got to be equally likely. They've got to behave the same way. And he assumes that the birds behave the same. Ground-dwelling tree climbers and birds evolved in parallel. Ground and tree predecessors. No, we're only really focusing on one group. We're focusing on the ground-dwelling. The passage doesn't even talk about tree climbing predecessors very much until the very, very, very end. And so that's why answer choice A is correct.